Hey, welcome to another edition of EdTalks. Courtney, welcome to EdTalks.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be fun because of a couple of reasons. One, you are an author, a new author of this book, and we're going to talk about this book, and we'll put all the information on how to get a copy of this book in the show notes. And I'm an author myself, so I love to promote other authors. I know what it takes to write, and I know what it takes to get visibility. And so I want to get it out there. And importantly, is the content of what you write about. And it's something that I think all of us in healthcare should know about. And that's trauma work and AKA shadow work, which will all make sense here in a second as we unpack this. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Courtney, so that we get to know you. And then we're going to jump into the book.
Yeah, so thank you again for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak to your audience and this platform. And just a little bit about me. I'm a former psychotherapist. I was trauma informed, and I spent the good part of my career focusing on traditional therapy, trauma work, going about it, the traditional way. I was having a lot of frustration with my clients, or I feel like there's something I'm missing. I'm not quite getting to that thing. It doesn't feel like this is the answer. I'm not seeing the results that I'm wanting. I'm like, what is this? I was having the same experiences in my own therapy. And what I uncovered was that people who are on this healing journey, who've had trauma, have a more difficult time reaching self-love and empathy for themselves, which I've discovered is really two very important things that we need to heal. And so I was like, how am I going to create an approach or method? Because I couldn't find one within traditional therapy. How can I create one that can help clients access these things? And I went on my own very long, I'm still on it, spiritual healing journey. And I came across some really alternative approaches and ways of helping and working with your trauma. And to me, they were so transformational and alchemizing that I incorporated them into my approach. And I took the background of all of my skills with, I've been in-depth trained in guided meditation and journeying, really seeing how important the subconscious mind is in terms of accessing that information for this work, and just how important this work is and spreading the word on that, because this is something that every single person could really use in their life.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm going to talk about this book. So the advanced shadow work method. So tell us, what is the difference between shadow work and trauma work?
Yeah, so it's very similar, if not the same thing, because shadow does not exist without trauma. Trauma is shadow, but there's also some caveats, some exceptions to that rule. So I like to simplify things in a way that previously shadow work, Carl Jung is who created shadow work to begin with, and he did not differentiate the difference between past life, collective, ancestral, generational trauma, which we're seeing a lot these days. It was just the wounded parts of you, the parts that you hate, you're ashamed of, embarrassed by, you don't want to acknowledge, you want to avoid it. Those are the shadow parts that he talks about. And for me, I don't see them in that light or perspective. I don't find it to be helpful, because what I've learned is that they are just wounded parts of you that have emotional needs that have not been met yet. And I created a guided meditation through all of that training that I went through to take people to meet with their shadow parts. So they get to hear from them, see them, create an agreement moving forward where they help out each other, and they end up healing. It's really incredible.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a super interesting perspective. And actually, I have a degree also in psychology,
Oh,
which
hey, look at that.
it's been great to have that basis,
Mm-hmm.
throughout my career. It's been super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So I get what you're talking about. So how does shadow work and trauma play a role in healthcare industry, right? So our audience here is healthcare, people who serve in healthcare. How do you see this playing a role in the industry?
There's huge roles. I mean, and I have not specifically worked in the hospital setting, but I have worked in a psych hospital. So it's kind of sort of like that. And I experienced a lot and saw a lot of trauma that not only employees are going through on a daily basis, but also clients or patients, right? It's something that is not talked about enough within the healthcare industry, just the level of trauma that all nurses and doctors experience sometimes on a daily basis, and it's never addressed. It's never, superiors aren't, they may be like, you need to go talk to the counselor who is counselor for the entire hospital, mind you. And, as more of like a check it off the list, not from a place of like, I'm really concerned. You just saw someone die, like, how are you doing with that? And really giving space to heal, to look at these things, because when we just have trauma layer on top of trauma, we get burnout really fast. We get emotionally distraught. People are have inability to do the things they want to do, function in their life. And, drug dependency and things can come up because of not exploring and healing these elements that keep happening over and over.
Yeah, there's a huge, like you're pointing out, a huge mental health crisis amongst healthcare workers and high suicide rate amongst clinicians, high drug dependency amongst clinicians. And it's true, while serving in healthcare can be the most satisfying thing because you're helping others, if you don't take the time for self-care and understand some of these principles you're talking about with trauma and things, it can creep up on you unknowingly, and suddenly you yourself become a patient or are ripe to be a patient. And there's nothing wrong, right? There's no stigma against mental health. We all deal with these sort of issues at some level. But the more that we're knowledgeable about it and the more tools that we have and the more awareness we create, which is everything what we're talking about doing right now, I think the better for everyone, and especially ultimately not only ourselves, but the patients that we serve.
Right.
Because it's hard being wounded to serve others that are wounded.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that I noticed too. It's like when I was working in a psych hospital, and this was during COVID, so there was just a lot going on, and people were in crisis and scared. And this mentality that has been going on that drives this, really strong force in the healthcare industry of like it's all about the patient experience, but they forget, right? Because as an employee, I felt left out. I felt like y'all don't care about me. You don't give a crap what I feel, what I'm going through. You just want to throw me in and it's all about everybody else. When, what are you going to do when I'm not here because I don't feel taken care of and cared about? I'm not okay either. Like, how do you expect me to show up, right? And so I think it's really important that from the higher ups, there be some sort of implementation, not just to care about the patient experience, but you have to care about your employees and providing them with courses for how to cope and ground when they experience trauma. How do you soothe your nervous system? Are there quiet places with, sensory soothing, options that you can utilize, tools, and then having more than one counselor maybe, or people who come in rotations to help, right? With self-talk, with talking through and processing everything that's happening around them so that they can continue to do their job like they want to.
Yeah. You'll appreciate this, Courtney. Although my peers thought I was nuts, but I think now today, looking back, they might think I think I may have been onto something. But within, so I was an executive over technology for a very large health system, and when I had an opportunity to sort of redesign our offices, I created sort of this safe place. I had several of them, but one in particular was a quiet room, it was a dark room, and it had waterfall in it, and you can only go there if you're going to be quiet, and it was dark, and it was like just a place to meditate, a place to escape, right? Because you're dealing with all this other people's trauma, the serving trauma, all that. You needed your own space as well, and so it became a very popular place. And I think we need more of that sort of thinking and design in our workplaces, especially in healthcare, because it's just the nature of what we're dealing with. So we're going to sell unashamedly sell the book now. So I want to sort of end with this. Again, we'll put all this information. Why should someone buy the book, and what are one or two things, Courtney, that they will learn from it?
Yeah, so you will learn coping and grounding skills. And more than anything, you don't have to learn my approach, but if you learn coping and grounding skills, that is the one thing that will 100% save your life more than one time. And it has saved my life so many times. That will help you navigate any kind of challenge and be able to show up for yourself, which helps everything, right? Knowing that, like, oh wow, I can count on myself, and really honing in on the health aspects. I go into generational and ancestral trauma, just showing how over generations, over time, that can create into physical illness, and just seeing how the importance of healing our emotional trauma can also heal us physically. And so if we want better physical health, we have to start here first.
Yeah, love it. Courtney Keiser, you're an amazing individual. I can tell, I know, and things that I've read and things I know about you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our guest on EdTalks.
Thank you so much for having me.